Now, this is the one right here that I think many people definitely wanted my take on. I've seen so many people talk about this already on Twitter. I've seen various people do live streams about it. I think Black Star did one. I saw him in the chat earlier. Professor Black Truth, his moment. He pardoned his Friday crime report today to insert his take about this, and that is none other than the whack NAACP out of San Francisco rejecting the $5 million reparation payment to foundational Black Americans. Like literally, they were this close. Y'all see my hand? They were this close. And who rejected them? The NAACP. But let me be honest with y'all. Pay attention to the CP part. That thing says colored people, or you can flip that to people of color. That's something we do not claim. That is something we do not claim. They will give awards to or nominate people like Donald Sterling with his anti-Black self. Of course, they didn't give it to him. They even tore up his invitation, but still, they will award Dwayne Wade and the high priestess, which he married, for what they did to his child. But they will turn and say nope to this. But they will do any and everything for everybody else. But because this is something that was specific for Black people, particularly foundational Black Americans, they said no. So what we're going to do is, because some of you may not have seen this whole document, is we are going to read why, not so much why, but their alternatives, which is the same BS we always hear. But we're about to go through it right now. This is dated March 14th, 2023. It says San Francisco NAACP rejects $5 million reparation payments to Blacks. And by the way, this was going to be $5 million per, not $5 million spread out. Because you had some people online saying, oh, I'm glad they rejected it because it was only $5 million. If you spread that out amongst, all the Black people that are who are eligible, they're not going to get much. No, this was going to be $5 million per eligible Black person in San Francisco. So imagine if you had a family of 4, that's $20 million that just came into your home. It says calls for reparation to focus on investments and opportunities in 5 key areas at Board of Supervisors meetings on reparations. You got to ask. Now I'm about to sound like Rob right quick. You got to ask yourself this question. What investments and opportunities are they talking about? Because I'm willing to bet it's not going to be to anyone's choosing. It's probably going to be something that's already been laid out and structured that they want to have these individuals go for, and not for what they want to go for. San Francisco. The San Francisco NAACP today called upon the Board of Supervisors to reject a one-time $5 million reparation payment to Blacks, but instead called upon the city to make investments in 5 key areas to atone for a history of racism, discrimination, and mistreatment. First off, y'all already messed up with that part, because this is not talking about a history of racism, discrimination, or mistreatment. This is dating back to chattel slavery. That's where we're kicking it off at. This is lineage based. When they say racism, discrimination, and mistreatment, that opens it up to a more broader audience. Because anybody can say they dealt with racism. Anyone can say they dealt with discrimination. Anybody can say they dealt with mistreatment, but not everybody can say that they have a lineage that goes back 400 years to slavery. See, you have to really, really read and dissect what it is that they're saying. It's a lot of trick bag stuff. And if you don't read it, you'll take it completely out of context. It goes on to say the Reverend Amos Brown. First off, your name is Amos. The only Amos I like is Famous Amos Cookies and John Amos from Good Times. All you other ones, I don't trust you until you can prove otherwise. You can be trusted. He said that the Board of Supervisors, which is holding a hearing today at 3 p.m. on the city's reparations plan and Dreamkeeper initiative, should redirect its focus on providing 5 key elements as part of reparations. Education, how many times we heard that? Jobs, how many times we've heard that? Housing, healthcare, and a cultural center for Blacks in San Francisco. No to the education, no to the jobs, no to the housing, no to the healthcare, definitely no to this cultural center, because what is that? And I'm gonna echo something that Professor Black said. If they gave out the $5 million per, we could provide all of that on our own. But again, it's like they're telling you that you can go with this option, but we're going to choose it for you. We're going to choose the type of education you're going to get. We're going to choose the type of jobs you're going to get. We're going to determine what kind of housing you get. We're going to determine what kind of healthcare you get. You're going to, and as that cultural center, they shouldn't even put that up there. We strongly believe that creating and funding programs can improve the lives of those who have been impacted by racism and discrimination is the best path forward toward equality and justice, Brown said. See, this is what I mean when I say tone deaf. This is the prime example of tone deaf. Now he goes on to break down these 5 points. It says, invest in education. Black students don't perform as well as their peers. We need remedial programs. He said we need remedial programs. He didn't even try to say AP programs. He said we need remedial programs to help our children with reading, math, and science. The school district and the city have a moral obligation to raise up all children, and especially those whose family has been disadvantaged by discrimination. My thing is this: y'all should have had already done something towards that. The city of San Francisco, if this is an issue, should have already done something about that. Why try to interject that now? That is nonsense. The second one says economic empowerment. You know, it's funny he says economic empowerment because if you just gave the $5 million, there is your economic empowerment right there. They literally are trying to go around and take the long scenic route around where they could just, instead of taking the highway and getting there faster, they want to take the back way and all these side roads and get there last. With President Biden's infrastructure bill, we want to see more Black people get the opportunity to get jobs on the billions of dollars in infrastructure work that will be done in our community, in our state. So I guess that means we're going to get some low-level job and we're going to try to work our way up. That's already happening right now. Why are you trying to provide something to us that's already happening right now? Like Professor Blatchu said in his video, we need businesses. We need more entrepreneurs. Again, tone deaf. Number 3, housing. We want more housing, more public housing, more affordable housing, aka more Section 8 for Blacks. There should be preferential treatment for blacks to keep our people in the city. San Francisco has fallen from 16% black population to less than 5%. Gee, I wonder why. We need a new version of 40 acres and a mule. He just said we need a new version of 40 acres and a mule. Why not just stick with the original one and just pay out the $5 million? Like every point that this Reverend Amos Brown is making, you can slip in the $5 million that will fix that situation. That benefits and assists blacks to live and thrive in San Francisco, a city that has done everything it can to drive us out through discrimination, as even wholesale removal during the urban renewal programs in the 1960s and 1970s. You right, Afro. I saw your comment, but I didn't get a chance to respond to it. This is giving me a headache. Like I feel like it's starting to form because I know my intelligence is being insulted, and y'all know that is one of my biggest pet peeves. Number 4. Healthcare. Blacks don't have the same lifespan as the majority population. We need programming that positively impacts our health, our longevity, and our mental health. Well, if they got the $5 million, they can go and get some great health care. If they had the $5 million, they can choose whatever healthcare provider that they wanted to go to, instead of dealing with some lackluster one, or at worst, dealing with none. That's one thing that I gave Canada over the US. At least Canada provides its residences with free healthcare. That's one thing I will give the country of Canada, is they provide free healthcare for all of their residences, all of their citizens, I should say. What's going on, James? And the last point, and this is about this cultural center. He could have left that one off. As a matter of fact, you could have tossed this whole thing away. But let's read it. Fillmore Heritage Center. The redevelopment agency destroyed a great deal of the Harlem of the West when it instituted urban renewal programs and drove black businesses and residents out of San Francisco. Our people need a black center of town. Just as there is a Japantown, a Chinatown, we need to preserve and protect the Fillmore Heritage Center and the surrounding blacks, not only as a historic center of our people, but as a place to gather and grow the black community for future generations. Again, if you had given them the $5 million, do you know that they could probably pull their money together and built this themselves with no strings attached? I know some people saw that video that I posted up on my channel. It was like a shorts video where it was some people in College Park, Georgia, that was built like they literally was building a town like that. If you gave the $5 million and reparations to the residents that are deserving of it, they could do the same thing. Every point that this thing says could be rectified with the $5 million. But they want to go and take this long way around the world in 80 days and back by providing this crap. And it's interesting, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the article on this, but Professor Black Truth, again, he did the moment of truth on it today. People, well, black people in particular, raised hell on this whole thing, as they should, as we should, especially those in San Francisco, and said, nope, we reject this. This isn't, no. The only people that was approving of this are the usual suspects, and of course, their co-colonizing cohorts, because they don't want black people to have nothing. And then what he went on and did was he, quote unquote, reworded what he said to try to make it seem like, oh, let me restructure what I said, because what I really meant to say was, no, what you really said was this. This whole document is what he meant to say. Whatever other thing he typed up or wrote up was nothing more than damage control. See, the thing is, they expect black people to just roll over and just deal with whatever bad hand that we are dealt, like we've been, like how it was in the past. And we're here to tell them, no, those days are long gone. Either pay up or move out of the way. It's like I said, there's gonna be a lot of changing of the guard. They're gonna be scared of us. Hey, Rob, I see you in the chat. I think black people have heard your message of embrace villainy. I think a lot of black people are starting to get there if they aren't there already. Because when I posted this as a link on my Twitter account like 2 days ago, I think, I said this is all the reason why black people need to, as Rob says, embrace villainy. We can't afford to be the good guys and the good girls or the good people anymore. It's already bad enough they make it seem like we the big black boogie man, boogie girl, boogie woman, whatever of society. I say let's give them a show. They love to be entertained so much, so that's where I'm at with it. But yeah, that's all. That's my take on this right now. But I would say this to the people out in California: keep fighting the good fight, because at least they pushed back against this and actually forced him to actually try to restructure what he was saying, even though what he was saying the second time was just as bad as this was. So definitely keep doing what it is that you're doing, and know that you are that close to getting what you deserve. They don't even, you gotta think about this. Shout out to Val for the super chat. You gotta think about this. It's not a lot of foundational black Americans in San Francisco. It's not that many in there. You have to ask yourself, why are they so against a very small population, and probably one of the smallest populations in San Francisco, getting a measly $5 million per person over the age of 18, if I'm correct. But they can send billions of dollars monthly to fund a war overseas. They wouldn't even crack $1 billion if they paid those who are eligible $5 million. They wouldn't crack $1 billion. They might not even crack 100 million. You got to like really wonder about that. They are fine with them funding that war. But this is what they got an issue with. I swear they tell on themselves every single day. You don't even have to pull it out of them anymore. They tell on themselves. Val said, can the black people who were chased out of San Francisco apply for? Oh yeah, most definitely, because they were original residents there. Basically, I think what it is you had to have been born there. So even if you don't live there anymore, they can still pull up like your birth certificate and say you were born there and you lived there for a certain amount of time. So yeah, if you were like an original San Francisco resident, but you don't live in San Francisco anymore, then yeah, you would still qualify. But if you were a person who was born in another state and you moved to San Francisco, then no, you don't qualify. Exactly. Black Bitcoin. He said, what happens in Cali spreads to the rest of the country. That's why I said I believe in domino effects. I'm glad you said that. If this went through, that means every other state, all eyes would be on them. All eyes would be on them. Like, you see what they did in San Francisco. Now, this is just San Francisco. Remember, there are other places in California where there are black people who are eligible living there. So they're going to be looking at all other places as well. And then they're going to branch out and look into other cities and states. And then that's when the snowball effect kicks in. And that, the long game, is what they don't want. That is the long game. That is the end. Well, it'll be a long time before the end game, but that's leading towards the end game. But that's what they don't want. And y'all always know, I always believe in domino effects. You knock one over, the rest begin to tumble, and you can't stop it until the last domino falls.